It's peaceful where I am right now. Where is that? The Schneider Operations Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. Not a truck stop. Another reason why it's probably peaceful and there's not a whole lot going on here right now that you're listening to is because as of the time of this recording right now, it is Thanksgiving Day 2023, a Thursday, as all Thanksgivings are. And I'm a bit frustrated, but I'll get to why. So let me take you back to where we last left off in the drama that is AliDocked. So right after I did my last entry, which was a Saturday, it was a Friday. At the end of that Friday, like right as soon as I shut off the camera, I got a pre-assignment for the next day, which was awesome because it was picking up. It had a code that was ready that said my pod was ready in the first thing in the morning in Lancaster. And then I was taking that pod to drop off in McKinney, where I was going to be picking up another pod and then going to Carrollton to pick up 2 more, then going to Orlando, 2 different locations. And so I showed up at Lancaster. I set my pickup time at 6 a.m. there. Now, that's one of the cool things about the Pods account is because we know what the hours are, 6 to 3, we can basically set our times to be whatever we want them to be. The company doesn't say when we have to do our pickups and deliveries as long as we do them by the due date. Most of the time, though, we hustle because if the wheels aren't turning, you're not earning. So I was there at 6 a.m. Right as soon as I got in the gate and parked, 4 or 5 other guys came in right behind me. That Saturday, there was 1 employee there and they were very understaffed. He didn't open the door until almost 6:30. By the time I got in there, gave him my trip sheet and stuff, information he puts in the computer. He says he's going to go ahead and do all the paperwork with the guys. Then he'll go out there and load me up. I was like, okay. I mean, 1 guy is doing everything. So at close to about 7 or so a.m., he's done with all the paperwork. And he starts zipping around on the forklift all over the place. Then he comes over to me and says, I don't see your pod here anywhere. It's not here. And I'm like, it was supposed to be ready this morning, right? And he says, yeah, I just don't know where it is. So let me get these other guys offloaded and unloaded and loaded, and then I'll go inside and look at the computer. So I contact Schneider and I say, hey, this is what the story is. What's going on? And I'm told, okay, we'll hang out and I'll send a message to Pods. So I'm hanging out. The guy comes back over and he says, after he loads and unloads everybody, he says, okay, your pod is not here. It's definitely not here. It has an ETA to be delivered here at noon. I contact Schneider and Schneider says, okay, hang out. The account wants you to hang out until noon and pick that up and then head on. Well, here's my dilemma. Pods closes at 3. If the pod arrives at noon, and let's just say I'm loaded up by, let's say 12:10, and I get out of there, it's an hour and almost 10 minutes to get to McKinney. And so by the time I get there, it'd be like, 1:20. If it takes a little while to offload and unload me, and it's like 1:45, it's going to be pushing it for me to get another 45 minutes over to McKinney. Over to Carrollton. So I look at the load and I'm thinking, use your time efficiently. I'm shutting down and obviously off the clock because I want to save my hours, not doing anything. And I get really frustrated because I am sitting there waiting and suddenly it hits me. I can go to Carrollton and pick up those 2 pods there, go back to Lancaster, wait for that pod to arrive, then pick up in Lancaster, drop it at McKinney and pick up. Because if it's going to be that late in the day, if that pod is late at all in arriving, it's going to throw off my entire schedule. If there's traffic later on in the day, which there always is in Dallas, then it could potentially keep me from getting out of Dallas. And then being that that's a Saturday, I just got through resetting, I would have to shut down again over Sunday and then get there on Monday morning. I did not want to do that. I don't like wasting time. So I went ahead and said, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Carrollton. I talked to Schneider. I talked to the DTLs, and I mentioned this. I said, I can go ahead and pick up those 2 pods, then come back. That way I'm using my time efficiently. Later, I got a message back and said, yeah, if I were you, I would do that. I'm like, okay. So I went on to Carrollton, picked up the 2 pods there, went back to Lancaster. On the way back, now here's another fun thing. Right after the last vlog I did, I look in one of the Schneider online forums and I see drivers talking about a new GPS system. And so I start looking at it, familiarizing myself with it, and it's got some bugs. It also doesn't have some of the features we really relied on with the old system. So this new GPS, it doesn't take you the right way sometimes. Like you're supposed to, if there's beltways around a city, you're supposed to not go straight through the city. You're supposed to take a beltway around. This GPS is routing you straight on through the middle. There are reports of people online saying it's taking them on restricted roads that are no truck roads. It's taking them onto roads that all of a sudden has a low bridge and they can't go under something that's under 13.6. So they're like, yikes, put on the brakes. One person had that happen 3 times in the second day they were out. It's like, wow. So anyway, that luckily didn't happen to me, just yet at least. I'll get to that. So as I'm going back to Lancaster, the GPS, I'm looking at it, and the GPS says, okay, in the split up ahead, take a right. I'm like, okay. So I start, I'm in the middle lane. It's on a frontage road. I just loop around. I'm on a frontage road. And so it says, look, take a right. And I'm like, okay. So I turn my signal on, and then it says turn left. I'm like, wait a minute, this is a frontage road. And if I go at the Y there, the left is what enters the interstate. If I take a right, I'm staying on the frontage road. If I turn right there and stay on the right side, and then I turn left, that's really weird. So at that point, I'm like, okay, what's going on here? I go ahead, and because I'm like, I get ready to turn left, maybe I'm just missing another entrance to a frontage road. And so I start checking my mirrors, and then it says turn right. And I'm like, whoa, wait a second now, because it just got through telling me to veer right, turn left. And now it's telling me to turn right. Well, since I just checked my mirrors, I put on the brakes, apparently harder than Schneider would want me to. And so the thing says critical event, hard brake. I had to talk to my DTL about that. I told her the same exact thing I just got through telling you, and she looks at an overhead view, which is kind of cool. They can do that. And she says, yeah, there is nobody around you. I'm like, yeah, because I checked my mirrors. I would not put on the brakes hard. And I only did it because I knew I was in a straight line. I was in this lane, and, it turned off to the left or it continued straight. And even though it was, taking the right-hand side, it was going straight. So when I put on the brake, I didn't jackknife or anything like that. Everything stayed in the line. So that's the only reason I put on the brake harder than I normally would. I didn't think it was hard enough to make it hard brake. Nothing locked up, but I thought that was kind of interesting. Another fun thing the GPS did when I was going north to Carrollton is it said, actually, it wasn't to Carrollton, it was later. It said, take this exit onto the frontage road and then re-enter North Central Freeway. Then take the frontage exit and then enter the North Central Freeway. I'm like, what are you doing? It's basically having me exit, enter, exit, enter. And then I looked at the GPS directions, and it wanted me to do that 4 times. And I stopped after 2. I'm like, I'm not going to just weave in and out. That's just, crazy. And it's waiting for an officer to be behind me saying, what are you doing? I'm following the GPS. So anyway, I went back to Lancaster and I was hanging out, waiting. At noon, I am, wondering what's going on. The guy comes back, and at 12:30, he says, I'm going to contact him and see where he is. They contact him, and he says, I should be there in 15 minutes. I got caught up in traffic. Sorry. At 1:34, over an hour later, he shows up. By then, I'm like stirring around. I'm like, come on. I don't want to be stuck in Dallas, Fort Worth over the weekend. So anyway, he arrives, and by then I already talked to the forklift guy and said, when he shows up, I'm going to tell him to break the straps and to pull that, and would you be standing by to pull that pod, throw it on my flatbed, and that way I can hit the road. Like a well-oiled machine, except the guy, he is like just letting the truck urge forward. He is so slow, and I'm like, come on. And then the forklift guy's like, come on. And he's just like creeping along slow. I mean, I could have done a brisk walk faster than he's coming down the way. And he's like, come on. And so he finally hits the gas and goes over there. As soon as the guy stops, I'm at his window, and I'm like, hey, I'm like, I've got to be on the opposite side of Dallas, Fort Worth to pick up and drop off before 3. Can you please break the strap on this? And so he jumps active. I mean, he's like, yeah. So he jumps up, breaks the strap. The forklift guy picks it up, throws it on mine. I already have the paperwork at this point. I made sure I had everything ready and stuff. So I secure that pod, and I am standing on the gas pedal. I mean, still, it's Still it's, Dallas Fort Worth, which you can't go into the back of people. It's going to be slower, than that. But anyway, this is when it had me wiggle in and out of traffic. I'm like, no. So anyway, the new GPS was so distracting because it kept having me do really boneheaded things. Like one of the other things is when I got to McKinney, it had me basically, there was a very, very prominent looking water tower. And I'm looking at it as I'm scanning around. I look at it and I'm passing it. And I go like 2 miles past it. No kidding. Because I remember I get stopped at that light and I'm like, how much farther? And it said 2 miles, like in change, 2.1, 2.2. I get down there and I turn hard right. And then I go back 2 miles. And then I turn right. And then it has me go someplace where it's having me go down a road. And I'm like, no, that's not it, because the directions on the paperwork says they're at the cross of this road and industrial whatever. So I turn right and it deviates from the directions. And another fun thing the GPS is doing is when you get to your location, it's like, oh, recalculating route, because it thinks that you're off your path. So anyway, it keeps trying to route you around the neighborhood even though you're there. So anyway, I followed the directions on the paperwork, showed up there at 2:56. Because I had picked up those 2 pods earlier, I dropped that 1 pod, picked up another one. The guy was there. He was just about to close up. And he's like, sure. He offloads me, loads me up. And at this point, I get out of there and it's congested traffic. And I'm thinking about going ahead and hitting the interstate and trying to see how many miles I can get down. But as I'm thinking in my mind, if I get up early in the morning and I start really early, I can probably get 650 miles down. And then the next morning, get up really early and then drive the rest of the way in Orlando. Because Orlando is like 1,000 miles. So thinking about this, I was thinking about stopping at a truck stop. But then I say to myself, it's already past 3 by the time I get to a truck stop. And most of the truck stops are really, really busy. If you stop at one of the few that are in the southeast side of Dallas, they're very congested, because the last time I was there was last weekend where I was when I did the last vlog entry. So I basically said to myself, no, that every truck stop is going to be packed. And if I get to another truck stop by the time it's like 4:35, something like that, it's going to be getting dark. People online are saying that the truck stops this time of year fill up earlier because the sun sets at like 5:30, depending on where you are in the country. So I decided I'm going to call it at Wilmer, at the Schneider Operations Center in Wilmer, Texas. I do that, I stay overnight, get up early the next morning and hit it hard going out towards Orlando. Go out 20, cut down a back road through Mississippi. And it's pretty uneventful. I mean, it's speed limit's 45, then 55, then 65 in certain areas. Depends on the population. If it's a more congested area, then it goes down to 45, sometimes a little bit slower. But I get down there and I stop at the Welcome Center just inside of Florida at the Pensacola Welcome Center, where they have freshly squeezed orange juice and grapefruit juice to taste test. Man, was that nice. Nice to just have a nice little sample. Stayed overnight there, got up early the next morning, and then head down to Orlando. As soon as I get on, 75 South, I think it is, it branches off to take the Florida Turnpike. And the Florida Turnpike goes into Orlando. Now, company policy is that if you're going to go on the Florida Turnpike, the New Jersey Turnpike, or the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, you have to have permission to do that because those are more expensive tolls. Well, I am wiggling around on back roads, going very slow. It's having me, basically the turnpike goes straight and it's having me go this way, then this way, then this way, then this way, just zigzagging my way back towards Orlando. And I'm looking at it, it's like 67 miles, something like that, from where it turns off right at the beginning of the turnpike. And I'm looking at this, shaking my head. And then as I'm driving, it's one of these situations where I'm driving down the road. It is perfectly straight. There's no turn. And then all of a sudden it says no trucks. I have to continue straight. What am I going to do? Stop in the middle of the road and back up down a 2-lane interstate or 2-lane back road freeway at 45 miles an hour with no shoulder? I can't do that. So at this point, I'm committed. But I look at the next turn and it's like 3/4 of a mile ahead, and that's a truck route again. I could even see it up ahead. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to have to go down this truck road. That is the only solution I have. So this is like slightly residential, but I do it. Luckily, nothing happens. I'm not pulled over. But as soon as I get to a traffic light, I send a message to my DTL and I say, the new GPS just routed me onto a non-truck route, and I don't want to do that. So would you please allow me to take the Florida Turnpike? A little while later, I got a message, absolutely take the Turnpike. And I was like, thank you. Because I was getting low on my hours. And at that point, if I had to pull over, and when I say low on my hours, it was the 8 hours that you have to stop for 30 minutes and do something that's not driving in order to get the last 3 hours of your day. So anyway, I'm like watching the time go down as I'm wiggling around on these back roads and getting stopped by every traffic light. As soon as she tells me, yes, you can take the Turnpike, I take the very next entrance to it. And then I get to my location in about 16 minutes. Because if you take the back roads, it would have been another 27 miles. When I jumped on the Florida Turnpike, it was 16 miles. Anyway, I later looked, and to take the entire Florida Turnpike into Orlando, the place I would need to take it, it would cost about $32 for a 5-axle semi. Now, I can understand why the company doesn't want to pay for that. But my opinion on this is, if I would have stayed on the Turnpike, I would have been there in probably about another 45 minutes, as opposed to taking about an hour and a half on back roads only to get about 2/3 the way there. And then when I had about 20 some odd miles left, I jumped on the Turnpike and finished it on out. That cost the company about, what was the calculation? It was like $16, $18, something like that, where I turned on. But it was $32 at the beginning of it. Now, I understand the company, it's more expensive a more expensive path to take. What I would like to point out, though, if anybody from Schneider is watching this, is that the current price of fuel is between $4 and $5 per gallon of diesel. And our trucks are getting approximately 8 miles to the gallon. 8.3 miles is what my truck is normally getting. And that's if you stay on the interstates. If you're taking back roads, starting and stopping, that's more wear and tear on the vehicle. It's a worse gas mileage. It means that we're making our deliveries slower. We're making less money. Just overall, it seems like a much better thing to allow us to take the Turnpike with the gas prices or the fuel prices the way they are. Plus, Schneider can write it off. It seems like a very little cost for the tolls. And I know it all adds up with all the different trucks. But then, hey, the company wants us to stay off the clock and does not compensate us for it if we're waiting on a load. And there's many times I'll wait for hours. And like when I was waiting in Lancaster, I was frustrated waiting around all morning. But the company is customer minded. They are very customer minded. So if the customer says, you know what, it would save a load if your driver could wait there for a while, I understand. It's a business decision. Schneider is very customer minded, and I would do the same thing if I was in charge. But as a driver, it's extremely frustrating. I do know other companies that pay their drivers that if they're waiting and they are off the clock. One guy I was talking to just the other day, he said he makes $18.50 if he's waiting. He says if he arrives on a Saturday too late and is waiting over the weekend, his company still pays him for that downtime over the weekend. Oh, that's nice. So that was, I don't remember the company he worked for, but I did think that was a really nice thing. I was like, really, they do that for you? He says, yeah, $18.50 an hour. Whew, that's nice. It's the first truck I've seen moving around in a while. He's not going to find any parking here because everybody in the world is here right now. So anyway, I get to Orlando, I do the drop, and I asked the guy at the security gate on the second location, do you mind if I hang out a little bit? Because it is now like 10 something a.m. Normally, new assignments come in sometime between the 10 and 11 o'clock hour. He says, not a problem. Not a problem. Go ahead and just pull in right over there when you offload. I offloaded about 20 minutes later, new pre-assignment. I'm like, yes, from the same place. So I went in, got the paperwork, loop back around there, pick up my pods, and then I start heading out. I have to get to one other location on the far east side of Orlando. I forgot that location. But then from there, I find a truck stop. It's the Loves in Destination Daytona Beach, Destination Daytona, and I get the second to last parking spot. So if you've seen the short video that I did about trucks stopping in front of you, like 25 feet in front of me, and me having in the middle of the night, leaving at like midnight, I'm having to move these trucks and tell them to move because I can't get out of my spot. There's 2 trucks that were in my way and I had to move them. I had one truck. He woke up and I saw another truck pulling out. So I said, "Hey, dude, you're literally blocking me." I said, "I just noticed a truck moving out over there. If you want to pull in that spot, I'll hold it for you." He's like, "Yeah, I've been waiting for a spot." So I ran over there to hold the spot for him. And then he pulled over, turned right back straight in. And he was so grateful. And then there were 2 trucks kind of in front of me. And I looked at the left one saying it would be easier for him to back into my spot than it would for the other one to have to do a blindside back. So I tried to knock on that truck, but he did not wake up when I banged on the window and whatever. So I was like, okay, fine. I got to go to the other one. So I knock on the door and he's like, "Yeah, it's okay. I got to leave here in a second anyway." I'm like, okay. Anyway, I leave out of there and start heading up north. I get all the way up to Disputanta, Virginia. Yes, it's just south of Richmond. I get all the way up there. And I shut down. It starts to sprinkle a little bit as I get close. And I shut down there, and for the first time in 3 days, I was able to take a shower because and what sucks is because when I stayed at that rest area, they didn't have showers. When I stayed at the Wilmer Operations Center, they didn't have clean showers at the time I got there because they were already they were doing the laundry and stuff like that at the time. And he's like, "Yeah, we don't have any showers available right now." I was like, okay. And then the day before that, I was at and then that day I was at the Loves. So basically in Wilmer, I was there the first night and they didn't have any showers available at that moment, but he says, "Try again in an hour." And I was about to go to bed. So I didn't shower that night, didn't shower at the Welcome Center, didn't shower at the Loves. I know you could say, "Stop being cheap, just pay for it." It's like, well, the next day I was just going to be driving on the road anyway. I was going to be stopping at a pilot at Disputanta. I don't know. Anyway, I stopped there, finally showered, felt really good. And the next day, I drove up to do the last like 200 miles. No, last 300 miles. Dropped off in Cinnaminson and got a pre-assignment late the day before. So I got there, I dropped off, I picked up, and actually I was looking at it because I knew I was starting to run low on my hours. I had like 31 hours left, I think it was at the time, 35 hours, something like that. And they assigned me to go back down south and drop in Concord, North Carolina, and Casey, South Carolina. But the thing is, driving north out of Disputanta, it was a torrential downpour. And so if I'm going straight in a straight line, my weather apps were telling me that I was going to potentially hit some areas of ponding. So I had the windshield wipers full blast and I was watching the road, and every single time I had to make a turn, even if it was a slow turn, I slowed way down. And then I would, what you refer to in a video game as point and squirt. You basically just go slow around the corner and then hit the gas and go straight and then slow down and then, turn and then hit the gas again. And I did that. Got there safely, no problems. Torrential downpour, middle of the night. Well, I think I left at I gave myself 6 hours and I was picking up at 6 a.m. So I left at midnight. Or actually, midnight is when I officially started my pre-trip, and I finished like 15 minutes later or something like that. Got out of there and then hit the road. So a little bit less than 6 hours. I picked up and parked at that pilot down around the corner, hung out with one of my friends because I looked, I was just going to secure the load and then hit the road. But then I looked at my traffic app and it was all red. And I know for a fact from looking at it before at the same time, it turns red and it gets bad. So I said, you know what? I'm going to hang out for an hour and see what happens. Friend came by, hung out in the truck with me a little bit. And then I looked at it and it was getting worse. Perhaps because it was the day before Thanksgiving. So I looked at it and I said, geez, this is the morning before Thanksgiving. Maybe cars are just going crazy and trying to get out of New Jersey, whatever, early. So I said, you know what, I'll hang out a little bit longer. And I hung out, off the clock, of course, until 10 something a.m. Now, why did I do that as opposed to getting through traffic? Because if I have 34, 35 hours, I think it was, now that I think about it, and if it takes, no, that's wrong. I had 17 hours is what it was on my estimate. And I was 15 hours by the time I got up there and did that drop. That's what it was, now that I think about it. Because when I got the assignment from Orlando, I was at like 34, 35 hours. So I got out of Orlando, got it 2 or 3 miles up the road, and then I drove like 10 and a half, 11 hours, something like that. And then I did the last few. So whatever it was, I'm trying to remember now. But I had like 15 hours left. No, it was maybe 16. I don't remember what it was exactly, but I remember I had to, if I want to do these 2 drops and get those dropped off, I have to do it and get those dropped off before. Yes, I have to do it before I have to shut down. Now, here's what's irritating to me. I drove in the middle of the night. I got up last night at 11 and headed out by 11 p.m. I got here to Charlotte, the OC, at 8 a.m. And right now I have 5 hours and 1 minute left. Here's why I said I'm frustrated. It is Thursday. Tomorrow, if I do my drop first thing in the morning, and then the second one first thing in the morning, if I don't have a pre-assignment by then, which I'm not going to because I got to do a 34 reset, they don't ever give you a pre-assignment when they know you have to reset. So it means I'm going to have to shut down on Friday, do a 34 over Saturday, and I'm going to shut down again on Sunday. I'm going to be down for 2 days. So in addition to me having no assignment right now that I can drop off because Thanksgiving, I can't drop off right now because they're closed. Drop off first thing in the morning tomorrow. And I'm thinking about pushing my assignments back because it would give me a better chance of getting a pre-assignment. So if I dropped off at Casey at 6 a.m. No, I'm sorry. If I drop off in Concord at 6 a.m. and I hang tight, this is what I'm probably going to have to do. I'm going to hang tight there, looking at the traffic for Charlotte. And then once it gets low, drive out. Because if there's any chance in the world of getting a pre-assignment there in Casey, which I seriously doubt, but it's a chance I'm willing to take. Because if I get a pre-assignment and I get it in the 11 something o'clock hour in the morning, I only have 5 hours. So I get up, do my pre-trip, head over there to Concord, do my drop, and then hang out off the clock, watching traffic. As soon as traffic passes, get out of there. Drive to Casey. And then as soon as I get to Casey, hopefully in no traffic, I can get there in like 2 hours from Concord, maybe a little bit more. So hopefully that would take me down no more than about 3 hours, maybe 3:15, hopefully. Because I'm looking at it, if my pre-assignment and getting over there takes 25 minutes, or my pre-trip and then getting over there takes 25 minutes, I can have the straps broken on that one pod that I have to drop in 8 minutes, have it pulled, have them rolled up, have them stowed, and then I jump off the clock until I'm loaded, until I'm offloaded. As soon as I'm offloaded, hit the road, or look at traffic obviously first, and then if it's clear, hit the road. So hopefully that would take no more than an hour, as long as I'm using my hours efficiently. But here's the thing: if I have any chance of getting a pre-assignment, it would be getting that pre-assignment in the late morning on a Friday. I don't think it's going to happen, though. And my reason for that is because I have to reset. Man, do I wish they would pre-assign me, because I don't want to end up having to go back and pick up something on Monday just to drop it off. I have home time scheduled for next Wednesday. If I pick up in Casey, they're going to have me drop it off someplace and then pick up something else and deliver it hopefully to Atlanta, where I'll drop off on Wednesday, then have my home time. That's not going to be very many miles. And I really don't want to be shut down for 2 days, because I'm already shut down here today. Granted, it is right now 4:36 p.m. I got up last night at 10:30 p.m. So I've been up now for 18 hours. Yes, 18 hours. Doesn't feel like it. Is that right? 4 to 10, yes. 18 hours, but it doesn't feel like it. And I have to continue to stay up because I need to be able to... What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to sleep, wake up early, and drive in no traffic to arrive in Concord early. So hopefully I'll be the first person in line. That way I can get all my stuff done. And that way, once they get me offloaded, I can look at the traffic. If the traffic is clear, head on over to Casey. If the traffic is not clear, then I would hang out there in Concord a little bit before I hit the road. It's the day after Thanksgiving. Hopefully there's not going to be a whole lot of traffic. But at the same time, there might be. I don't think so. I think driving Friday morning, the day after Thanksgiving, should be clear. So if I can get to Casey and I can drop that off, what I'll do is I'll hang out in Casey a little bit and see if I'm on the list to get a pre-assignment. If I am, I will stay there in Casey for a little bit, hoping and praying I get a pre-assignment. And if so, load that bad boy up, then shut down for my 34. Because if I leave there and then go back, not only do you leave out of a parking spot, but that's extra there and back and there and back. And plus, I'll already do a post trip. If I'm hanging out in Casey off the clock, then I will basically be sitting there waiting. And if I'm sitting there waiting off the clock, that'd save the drive time, because I have 5 hours left. I have to be smart about it. Luckily, there's a pilot in Columbia pretty close to that Casey location. Now, my GPS is routing me a really weird way. When you get from Charlotte down 77, you can go counterclockwise, take the exit, go underneath the interstate, and then enter basically it's the exit ramp for the interstate. And then you can take it down to the road that Commerce Drive or whatever it is that the pod's location is on. But it is having me go the opposite direction clockwise around, where I have to take that frontage road and either turn hard right and basically make almost like a U-turn onto that frontage road in order to get down to the pod's location. That just doesn't... It looks like it's big enough to do, but I don't want to have to put on the brakes that much. And then anyone that's behind me slowing down is going to have to put on their brakes for me to, to be basically make a turn at 10 miles an hour. It's also going to be shorter and safer if I just go counterclockwise. So GPS, luckily they've given us a tool, and I hope it works, that we can just glance at it. And if there's something that we want to note, hit the flag button. We hit the flag button, and then later when it's safe and legal, we can go into the tablet and bring up our markers. Because when you push the flag button, it brings up it makes a marker of your location. Then you can type in what it is about that location. So I've mentioned, the beltways, it should be a beltway we take here, or don't have me go, have people go up the New Jersey Turnpike, take 295 over. That's going to be better because it's avoiding the turnpike, or it's better if we take this turn as a and take the back road over, as opposed to taking this and going down 130 out of Cinnamon Sin and then taking the back roads on the slower roads and whatever. So anyway, the GPS is learning. Hopefully it's going to be better. The one thing is it keeps crashing. It's very bulky. I think it's very big, bloated, because it keeps crashing. It probably it crashes on me about 3 times a day. It'll probably work its way out by the time you're looking at this video, though. Maybe they'll issue us all new tablets. And the new tablets will have more memory, because I think that's what it is. I can't access it to see how much memory is in the storage. But I'm assuming that it is full. All right, so that's the latest. Anything else I need to mention that I've been thinking about? I mean, that's the big thing. I've got my 34, after I spend my 5 hours tomorrow. I have 150 miles to drive. I have about 25 miles to get up to Concord. 25 miles. Then from there, I have 120 miles to get down to Casey. From Casey, I have about 5 to get to the truck stop. 150 miles in 5 hours. Not a problem as long as the roads are clear. I'm going to have plenty of time. Because there's been other times I've been like nervous and like, look at my hours. And I'm like, oh, geez, I only have like 5.5 hours and I got all this stuff to do. And then I look at it and I get all my work done and I still have like 2 hours and 22 minutes. I'm like, wow, how did I go so fast? And the reason why is because it's basically just reading the traffic and looking at things and shutting down and just jumping off duty when, saving hours when you can, being smart about it. Man, do I hope I get a pre-assignment. I really don't want to be down all Saturday and Sunday. It's going to be really depressing to me, having to pick up something on Monday. And they're probably going to have me deliver something on Tuesday and then pick up something on Tuesday and then drop off in Atlanta on Wednesday, hopefully. But anytime you do that kind of stuff, you're limited to only like 500 miles a day. So that'd only be 1,000 miles or something like that, which at, the mileage rate I'm getting, I'd barely make $500 and some odd for those 2 days of deliveries, as opposed to just jumping on the interstate and going. I'm going to send a message out to them right now and say, am I on the list to get something tomorrow? I'll see if I am. Because if I am, I'll hang out in Casey. If not, I'll know I'm doomed and not going to get something until Monday. The only way I think that they would pre-assign me something is knowing that if I picked up on Friday, if it's not due on Saturday, if it's due on Monday, I could make it. If it's due on Saturday, I won't be able to because I got to do my reset. So annoying. I thought about it. I thought about resetting yesterday. I thought about resetting, and looking back in hindsight, maybe it would have been smarter for me to have picked up yesterday in Cinnamon Sin, drive down as far as I could that day, and not spend time with my friend. Just drive in traffic, shut down, do a reset. That means that I would be done with it on Thursday, like Thanksgiving. I'd finish it tonight. I could jump on the road at like early in the morning, drive overnight, stop in Concord, maybe hightail it over to Casey. Either way, I would be able to pick up on, I'd drive in on Friday, and if nothing else, I'd pick up on Saturday, and I'd have fresh hours. Hindsight's 20/20, as they say. Suddenly, it occurs to me I have been off the clock now for how long? Eight hours and 28 minutes. So let me think. If I stayed here 24 hours, I have to look at my delivery date. Because right now, if I'm shut down today, if my deliveries are due tomorrow, I got to do it. And then just not have anything Saturday and Sunday. If my deliveries are not due until Saturday, stay off the clock, do my shutdown through Friday, start on Saturday, get a pre-assignment. That way I'm driving. I'm going to have to look at that. That may be a possibility. I'm going to end this now because that's a possibility I'm going to look at. Thanks for watching.